lunchtime, and this is the spread for today. Sandwiches with fruit and vegetables and a strawberry smoothie. So there's supposed to be a 12 o'clock broadcast, and I'm just waiting for that. I don't know if there will be more alternative media coming, but I thought there would be because of the G20, but still seems to be like half of the room is filled, but you know, I don't know. I don't actually know how many if the mainstream International Media Center has more media, but I'll also be going later on to the rally, there are organizations that have there's supposed to be a rally at the Queen's Park later on, so I'll be going there after the broadcast.
Sur la nécessité de tenir parole, d'être imputable. Nous avons également discuté d'autres enjeux globaux, la prolifération nucléaire, l'Iran et la mise en œuvre des sanctions prévues à la résolution 1929 des Nations Unies, la Corée du Nord et l'attaque du la Corée du Nord et l'attaque de Cheonan. Les gouvernements de l'Iran et de la Corée du Nord ont choisi d'acquérir des armes et de menacer leurs voisins. Le monde doit s'assurer que ce qu'ils dépensent ne seront pas les seuls coûts associés à ces actions. Nous avons aussi discuté de l'Afghanistan et du Pakistan et des enjeux de gouvernance et de la stabilité dans cette région, de la situation bien sûr au Moyen-Orient et des changements climatiques. Nous devons tenir parole car c'est essentiel à notre crédibilité et notre efficacité. Le G8 est transformé et plus fort. Nous avons des objectifs communs et j'ai bien hâte, évidemment, maintenant d'accueillir mes collègues du G20 à Toronto. Greetings, everyone. We had a very successful summit. We have refocused the G8 on its strengths, development, peace, and of course, global security challenges. The G8 has committed an additional $5 billion US over the next 5 years, and with our partners, as I mentioned yesterday, bringing the total to $7.3 billion on the Muskoka Initiative on maternal, newborn, and child health. Accountability will be the key as we move forward, and as you know, we put increased emphasis on that. We also discussed a further range of global challenges, nuclear proliferation, Iran, the implementation of sanctions foreseen by the United Nations Resolution 1929, also North Korea and the Cheonan incident. The governments of Iran and North Korea have chosen to acquire weapons to threaten their neighbors. The world must see to it that what they spend on these weapons will not be the only cost that they incur. We've also discussed Afghanistan, Pakistan, governance, stability in that particular region, of course, the Middle East, and climate change. It is essential that the G8 keep its promises going forward. This is essential to the credibility and effectiveness of this forum as an organization. The G8 has been reshaped and re-energized. Its members to share common objectives in the world, and of course now I look forward to meeting my colleagues of the G20 in Toronto.
A few moments for some questions today. We'll start with Brett Harris of BNN. Brett, if you could stand up and the mic will come over to you, please.
You mentioned that you've refocused and re-energized the G8. However, as you go into the next G20 meeting and we look at the meetings beyond, we know that the economic issue has been handed over to the G8. Some G20 nations would like to see development and aid handed over. It will be on the agenda in Seoul. Many people say that this could be the last G8 that we see in North America, that it may eventually be folded in with the G20. Could you speak to that, please?
Yeah, I would certainly doubt that. You know, I would say that maybe last year, this time, there was a lot of talk around the table. I think I speak clearly for all the leaders of the G8. In the discussion we had last night, we had a discussion last night specifically about international institutions and international architecture. And I think there is a greater understanding. As we get into the G20 process, there is a greater understanding of the necessity of also having a forum of like-minded advanced countries who can exchange views in a much less formal setting, and who can sometimes quickly bring resources to bear that others don't have on certain types of complex world problems. The G20 has done a magnificent job so far in really the year and a half it's been around and has been tackling the economic crisis, but there are, quite frankly, limits to what you can discuss and what you can achieve in a group of 20, and of course there's always other participants as well. It leads to much less formal discussion that you're able to have in a group like the G8. And also there's much less, beyond the economy, there is much less commonality of purpose than you have at the G8. So as I say, I think all the leaders at this point would be, I think, pretty strong in their view, based on the discussion we had last night, that the G8 is a pretty essential organization going forward, but our coordination through the G20, the United Nations, and other international institutions remains obviously equally vital.
Madeleine Blais-Morin with Radio Canada.
Soit la fin du G20 ici à Muskoka, parce que vous dites depuis 1 an et demi, on a réussi à prouver l'importance de ce sommet-là. Est-ce que c'est le fait que vous n'ayez plus à traiter des questions économiques? Est-ce que c'est le fait que vous l'ayez cédé au G20 qui a finalement assuré l'avenir du G20?
Évidemment, premièrement, le G20 peut discuter n'importe quelle chose, parce que le G20 a la possibilité, à cause de sa grandeur, la possibilité des discussions bien informelles sur plusieurs enjeux, y compris l'économie. Mais notre avis, c'est l'avis partagé autour de la table. C'est essentiel d'avoir un groupe plus grand, plus représentatif pour faire face aux défis de l'économie mondiale. Parce qu'il n'y a plus assez de l'économie mondiale autour de la table du G8 de vraiment prendre des décisions pour le monde en reconnaissant. En même temps, la réalité est que le G8 rassemble des pays qui ont des valeurs en commun, qui sont des pays développés et sur un beaucoup plus grand nombre de sujets que le G20, le G8 est capable d'avoir des discussions informelles pour sa nature et est plus capable d'arriver à un consensus pour des actions. Alors, pour cette raison, le G8 va rester important, mais en même temps, la participation des pays du G8 dans le G20 et dans les Nations Unies et dans les autres institutions internationales reste aussi bien importante.
Narmela Menon with Dow Jones.
Mr. Prime Minister, I'm wondering what was the nature of discussions as far as fiscal consolidation is concerned? I'm wondering if the G8 has reached some kind of consensus on targets or on the whole issue that you can carry to G20 and what they thought of the targets that you've proposed.
Well, there is informal discussion in the G8 on a range of matters, including economic matters. The G8 has not attempted to arrive at consensus positions in order not to prejudice the discussions of the G20. But as you know, I have written my colleagues in the G20 on a couple of occasions to emphasize the importance of fiscal consolidation going forward. we say fiscal consolidation and reductions of deficit and debt levels, not as an end in itself, but obviously as part of a range of tools we're going to need to entrench and to maintain the global recovery. So we're going to have good discussions around that in Toronto, but I think my sense is there is a strong consensus around the necessity for midterm plans on fiscal consolidation in these countries.
Mallory Beauchemin, La Presse.
Oui, Monsieur Alpeux, sur la question des changements climatiques, vous en parlez dans le communiqué final. Vous avez eu un pas important de fait à l'Aquila avec l'adoption du 2 degrés de limitation du réchauffement climatique. Quel sera l'héritage de ce sommet de Muskoka en termes de changement climatique?
Pour les deux sommets, pour le G20 et le G20, en effet, nous avons notre déclaration ici. Mais à la fin, c'est une discussion pour préparer, en effet, les discussions bien importantes de l'ONU, le processus de l'ONU en automne. Je pense que les pays ici reconnaissent la nécessité de travailler ensemble pour vraiment atteindre un traité légal obligatoire tous les pays à long terme. C'est notre objectif. Nous avons eu de bonnes discussions à cet égard, mais à la fin, le vrai processus, c'est le processus de l'ONU. Et nous sommes tous dévoués à assurer le succès de ce processus.
David Uring with Reuters.
Prime Minister, quick couple of points, if you may. The language on bilateral trade deals, does that suggest that you're conceding that Doha is dead? That really isn't going anywhere. I mean, that's the first time I think we've seen that kind of language.
Were you going to ask me a second question?
I was. On Afghanistan, despite the talk of tactical progress, despite things that are very complex, especially the way that General Rickerson's departure, how much confidence is there really inside the G things are going to get better in Afghanistan anytime soon? Thanks.
Yeah, two good questions. First of all, on trade, I don't think it's any secret that the Doha round has run into difficulty. Everybody around the table agrees that in the future, at some point, we must complete the Doha round. We're looking at language in terms of our G20 discussions on how we can advance that particular objective. And I think there's also an agreement that in order to have a successful round at the Doha round, eventually we all must raise our level of ambition. But in the meantime, it's no secret that the Government of Canada and many other governments are committed to more aggressively pursuing bilateral and regional trade deals as a way of kickstarting the process while we see the Doha talks remain stalled. And as you know, in particular around that table, Canada and the European Union are involved in very important discussions on a potential free trade deal between our part of North America and Europe. So we will continue to look for ways to move Doha forward. I would never go so far as to say Doha is dead. I don't think it's true, and I don't think we can afford to say that. We've got to find a path over time to get to a successful conclusion. At the same time, though, those of us who favor liberalized trade are not going to stand still. We're going to make sure we work through all possible avenues, including bilateral and regional avenues, to advance that objective.
Chris Hall, CBC.
Afghanistan. On Afghanistan, look, everybody recognizes that the challenges there remain significant. We're under no illusion. Just about every country around the G8 table is involved in Afghanistan, most directly, and I think everybody indirectly in some capacity. We realize challenges remain pretty severe. That said, I think there's a general recognition around the G8 table that we have to continue to put our shoulder to the wheel to ultimately ensure that what we leave behind is a stable Afghanistan that will be a positive contributor to the world to world security and not a potential source of terrorism or a potential failed state. We all agree that this remains an overriding, essential objective for all of the countries of the world.
Now we'll go to Chris Hall of CBC.
Prime Minister, I wanted to ask you, as you talked about common purpose going into the G20 around the economy, what concerns you have, both personally for Canada and for global recovery, if Greece is forced to restructure, and what impact that might have down the road as you try to map out this midterm lowering debts and getting the debt-to-GDP ratios back in the store?
Well, I think, Chris, what all leaders recognize, and I think we don't speak here simply at the G8, but we can speak a little bit to the G20 conversations I've had. We all realize that the world economy, the world economic recovery is fragile. We all realize that there are many risks going forward to that recovery. That said, I think what we all recognize is the following, that what we must avoid at just about all costs is some kind of cataclysmic event along the lines of Lehman Brothers. We can't afford some particular event that would cause a series of cascading events and a downward spiral of confidence in global markets. That, I think, that lesson from 2008 and that risk today is what overwhelmingly drives all G20 leaders as we look at the problems we see before us. There's been talk, as you know, obviously talk in Europe about sovereign debt crises and defaults. There's been further talk in various countries about the pressures this creates on the banking system. But I think what you've seen, every time you've seen those kinds of problems, is the countries involved working with their G8 and their G20 counterparts and others in the Financial Stability Board, working very quickly to ensure that no short-term cataclysmic event occurs that could throw us suddenly very far off track. So we all remain, quite frankly, week to week, day to day, we remain very engaged, very watchful of those kinds of situations. The G20 is an opportunity for us to take a somewhat longer time horizon. In this case, we're talking really a midterm horizon, a 3 to 5 year horizon as opposed to year or month to month horizon, and actually look at what we can do to bolster and entrench this recovery moving forward.
We have time for one last question. We're going to go to Toronto, Mike 1, Bob Fife with CTV.
Prime Minister, when we headed into this summit, there was a lot of talk of the divisions between Europe and the United States when it came to deficit reduction and stimulus spending. As you go into tonight's meeting, how confident are you that the leaders will agree to your proposal for targets of getting rid of their deficits in half by 2013 and then getting debt to GDP levels down? Or is it, or we're going to be stuck with a situation where the consensus will be that we'll just go in each country will go in its own direction?
Well, we'll see. I'm confident we'll have good discussions. What I would say is this, Bob. My observation at this particular G8, I have never been at a G8 where, regardless of what the subject has been, whether it's been economic matters or security matters or development matters, I've never been at a summit where leaders seem to more deeply feel the necessity of common action and common purpose. Why is that? Some of it may be some of the personalities around the table and the generational change that has taken place in the G8 over the past few years. Some of it, I'm sure, are the enormous challenges facing us all. The crisis we have had in the global economy that instantly affected every country, and some of the major security and development challenges around the world, some of which I mentioned earlier, Iran, North Korea, the Middle East, some of which really do represent serious threats to the stability and ultimately the economic future and prosperity of every country. So I think, as I say, given the generational change over the last few years, given the nature of the events and the challenges that confront us, I have never seen a G8 more fundamentally united in purpose, more frank in its discussions, and I think that will carry forward into the G20. In the G20 we have a collection of leaders who obviously have a great deal more in terms of more diversity in terms of the kinds of economies and societies they're governing. Nevertheless, my sense is that that commonality of purpose will move forward, and that people will understand the necessity of arriving at good, solid, midterm plans for the global economy.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, it's day 2 in the G8 G20 summit, and I'm here at the Alternative Media Center, and the newspapers are talking about the amount of funding that the G8 countries are able to pledge. It's about $5 billion, but it's short of what was expected, and the countries that are going to be funded are the poor countries in Africa for maternal and infant care, health care. Anyway, part of the problem is that, well, in the third world countries, in the poor countries, the local governments do not have any public health care system the way the first world countries have. And if poor countries had public health care where part of taxes are put towards healthcare programs using the local currencies of those countries, the problem would probably be less because it would be on an ongoing basis. Because the first world, like in Canada, the healthcare is free because it's paid for by our taxes. We pay taxes, and the taxes, part of it goes towards healthcare. So we have regular healthcare. We don't wait till we're really sick before we have to see a doctor. So our health, the standards in health are maintained. If the poorer countries, like, for example, I was born in the Philippines, and there only really rich people can afford hospitalization and health care. The public health care there is very minimal, with free medical and dental clinics, and you have to be really poor to be able to use those. So the middle class and the rich, if you get sick, you can end up poor because of all the cost of private health care. So I think what should happen is, aside from all the rich countries helping the poor countries should use their local currencies and taxes to fund an ongoing healthcare program for people, so that the health standards would be maintained on an ongoing basis using the local currencies. Oh, that's the U.S. consulate.
Oh, that's what it's getting.
Yeah.
Séparation en Écosse.
Where do you want us? Where is he? Regent's going on one side. Right here. You come in. We're right here. Come on, guys, let's go.
Come on, making them on, eh? Where's that? We're always in front of you.
Yeah, that's us. That's us. Get up. Guys, can you clear a hole for us and let us get ahead of you? Hey, sir, where's the freedom? Yeah, where is it? Oh, shoot. Hey, Impregnable! Hey, great. Oh, good. I'm trying to call you.
Bring such joy around the world.
Absolutely. And they all would not allow it.
What's the box?
Esa agarra el cachón.
long as you
I feel like I saw behind them.
wait a minute to make
The whole way like that.
Which media are you with?
I'm with Chinese newspaper.
Which one?
North Star Times.
Is it Toronto based?
Yeah. How about you?
Well, yeah, I'm based in Toronto too, but I do videos of events. I think it's good that the people are involved, you know, like because the economy. Yeah, this is the most interesting event so far. It's because I'm the media. I line up in the Alternative Media Center. We only get broadcasts from the Muskoka. We don't see the politicians in person, so we only see them on the TV screens. So this is like the most exciting event so far in the G8, G20. Like to see a real, you know, where people are going out and protesting, or well, they're not just protesting; they're actually asking for the same thing: jobs, you know, alleviation of poverty, women's rights, same issues.